It's lights out from the pit wall. I'm your host, Jeanmark Kessler. Welcome to our very first Fantasy Formula One podcast. And joining me are my beautiful family members, my bro, Dominick, and my father, Dr. David Kessler. Now, we've been playing for the last 3 seasons, and we want to bring American fantasy sports managing style to Formula One. And we'll explain all those rules and the variations as we move forward. But the main thing, the big difference is no money, all team. So when you pick your driver, you're the only one who can have your driver. So let's begin also with a story. As you notice, none of us, when we talk, are going to have a British accent. We are far from the European side of things. We are far from the center of Formula One. And so we just want to share some of our story and our passion. So let's hear from my bro first. Dominick, how did you get into Formula One?
Well, I'm going to be honest. Formula One was something I kind of knew about for like a long time. Even as a kid, I mean, it was something that was there. You know, in America, we got IndyCar, and so that's probably, what I heard of more. But then my bro started getting into Formula One, and he had mentioned it to me, and I looked into it, and it looked really interesting. And a couple of years later, I'm really into it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And I think that was, 2018 or so that I roped you guys into it, because I figured if I was going to play, then I needed to play someone Fantasy Formula One with, also to watch and play. So, okay, Dad, for all you at home, our loving title for the father, Dad. So that's who we're referring to, David Kessler. Dad, how did you hear about Formula One, or how did you get into it?
Well, I knew about NASCAR, and that's how much racing I kind of knew about. And then Jeanmark mentioned about playing a game, and we like playing games as a family. And so he said, hey, there's this Formula One, and you can pick a team. And we picked a team, and then after we played a season, we thought we might be able to enjoy it more as a family if we made some modifications. And so Jeanmark was instrumental in making it more enjoyable for us.
And to give some background for it, you are the league commissioner for our fantasy football league, and so you're used to all the adjustments and control you have to making the league custom.
Yes.
And so we wanted to take that custom ability into Fantasy Formula One. And as for me, my bro and I, we grew up watching these cartoons. Michael Valiant was a French comic, but then Hot Wheels got the licensing rights to make cartoons. And so we would watch those. As you would buy the Hot Wheel cars, you would also watch the Hot Wheels stories, and that was really great. Michael Valiant always saves the day. And they had Formula One racing in that. And then 2006, right, we went to Germany for my aunt's wedding, and there was going to be the World Cup hosted that year in Germany. But I remember very distinctly in one of the big shopping centers, got a short, small pamphlet. It was a Formula One pamphlet. It was all in German. I had no clue, but on the front was a red Ferrari Formula One car. I would learn later that it was Schumacher, because that was the one German word I guess I could recognize as a last name. And that was my first exposure to Formula One. Fast forward to 2008, and I decided as an adult living on my own, hey, I would love to jump in, find out what Formula One was about. And the hands had just changed, well, maybe 2 seasons before, but Liberty Media had bought Formula One, and they were revamping the website. They are promoting the F1 TV Pro, and that's actually how I now had the opportunity to watch the races. And then they also launched Fantasy Formula One, and I decided to call you guys up and get a crew together so we could play. So that's the story of us getting into Formula One. And so I would say probably for you guys, you would probably agree most of your knowledge comes from the last 3 seasons, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So we're noobs. But at the other hand, because of Fantasy Formula One and having the F1 TV Pro app, I was able to watch the backlog. So from the 19 80s all the way to present. I've watched every season, and I've been able to follow the storylines, get in the history, watch a lot of YouTubers, and you might hear me reference them from time to time. Check the F1 news daily. So I think I'm neck deep in it. So let's go over to looking at the fastest laps of the preseason testing. What are some of your initial thoughts?
Well, I was pleasantly surprised that Ferrari actually had someone in the top three, and that there was a rookie in second place. I thought that was pretty amazing.
And for AlphaTauri, no less.
Yeah, actually, I think that would be good to highlight our new teams, our new drivers. So joining on the grid this season are 3 new rookies. Yuki Tsunoda, which is right, like you said, second on the timesheet. And then the 2 Haas boys, Nikita Mazepin and Mick Schumacher, son of the famous 7-time world champion Michael Schumacher. And so, yeah, we have 3 new drivers. And then we also have new teams on the grid. Renault has changed their name to be their sporting division, which is Alpine. And then Racing Point, with the backing of the consortium led by the Stroll family, is now Aston Martin. And so we get the green, the British Racing green on the grid. So as you guys can see, Verstappen was first. This was over 3 days. They could have different tires, different fuel levels. But Yuki Tsunoda, this is a fun little tidbit. Apparently, during practice sessions, you can open up your DRS wing as much as you want. And so he was opening it up quite a lot before the straight and before the normal DRS zone. So we're going to talk about the meat of this podcast, which is our custom fantasy Formula One league. We're calling it a driver rotation draft league, or a DRD. Why? Because we have no salary cap, no constructors, just drivers. How do you pair them? What's the strategy involved? So we're going to give you that run through. First thing I want to do is take you to this Google Sheet, one that I've been developing over the last 3 years. And the main thing here on the races page is we're keeping track of our score as the season progresses. There are 3 stages to a season. You have your preseason, you have your regular season, you have your playoffs. Now to our draft. Like we said, there is no salary cap, no constructors, just your drivers. It is a driver rotational draft, which means that when you have a driver, you're the only one who can have that driver.
We're actually going to show you what's going on.
Let's go to the draft page. It is a little zoomed in right now, so because my bro finished last season in 3rd place, he gets to draft first.
I unfortunately did not do as well last year as I was hoping.
Also, to be clear, the current order is based off of preseason testing time. So that's why Verstappen's number 1 and Tsunoda's number 2. Next week, it'll be based off of finishing order. So I don't think Tsunoda is going to finish on the podium. But so let's say he did, he would then stay up in position 1, 2, or 3.
It's mad disrespect. Just assuming things right off the bat. But that's okay.
Okay, so bro, who is your first driver?
So here's the deal. Obviously, it's a new year. I do not have as much information as I would like, but here's my thing. Ricardo was really good last year. He got a lot of fantasy points, to the point that even with our rules last year, we almost had to make him a wild card driver.
Yeah,
he was very good.
I think he averaged 29.5 points a race or something like that.
Yes, and unfortunately for my dad, because I believe he's the one who had him, it didn't help him win, but it definitely carried him for pretty much he carried him for like the whole season. So I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to assume that he's going to continue being good, and so I will make my first pick Ricardo.
Now, for Ricardo, he is with a different team this season, right? He's on McLaren, but he gets a Mercedes engine. Next on the block to pick is Dad.
I really think that Ferrari made some little adjustments, so I'm anxious to see what Leclerc does with those adjustments, because he's a pretty good driver when he has a good car.
Oh, that was my pick.
We'll see. Okay, so for me, I'm going to go with Vettel.
Ooh. He's going for all the options.
Aston Martin is pretty high up there if they continue to improve. They did have some gearbox issues or something else that was happening during preseason testing, similar to what Mercedes was having. I'm hoping that Vettel will get his second win. He's a really good driver. He's a 4-time world champion, and this will give him an opportunity to showcase that. So I'm going to pick him. Now, because it's a snake, I get my next pick, and Vettel gets the cream of the crop. So I'm going to pick as my second driver. I'm going
You'll see that he gets every option.
I get everybody.
All the options.
All the options.
Hey, you should get signed. Just get both of the Ferraris.
No.
That's if you're looking down. All right, when you're looking down column AM.
So technically, I think I misdraft this. I shouldn't have drafted Vettel first.
Yeah, especially since you get a pick second anyway.
Right, so I'm actually going to go back, and I'm going
to... No, none of that.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to draft... I'm a scout, excuse me. We're not drafting, we're scouting, because it's preseason. It's technically a draft, but we're calling
it illegal.
So if I do Tsunoda, I only have 2 options. See, if I did Vettel and then Tsunoda, I'd get stuck with Schumacher, which is a Haas car, and they're not developing their car this season.
He says stuck. That is some disrespect. Disrespect, man.
So
like, don't say stuck until you actually know how good he is.
And then I'm going to then double dip and then go with Vettel. So here's the strategy. Because Tsunoda was so high in preseason testing, I'd rather pick Vettel second. So then I get a bunch more options for my third driver.
For your third driver. Okay. I mean, that makes sense.
What about you? So now yours is based off Ricardo. You base off of Leclerc.
So Leclerc is AF, column AF.
Column AF, go down.
I can go with Alonso, Gasly, Stroll, Norris. Okay. So, Alonso, he has a good history. I'm willing to give him a try with a
He's
Alpine.
Back at Renault, and this time it's called Alpine. This will be his 3rd stint with the team. And that was all triggered because Ricciardo left Renault for McLaren. Alonso is a really consistent driver, so he should probably do good if the car's giving him the opportunity. So you're going with Alonso?
Yep.
Okay. And then, bro, you've got to pick from column Z, which is for Ricciardo. You got Norris, Giovinazzi, Ocon, Mazepin, Latifi, Schumacher.
Okay, let's see here. Well, I already picked a McLaren. I'm not sure I'm ready. I don't know if it would be strategically advantageous to pick a second McLaren. Let's see here. I have the Alpine. Oh man. So I'm going to go with Giovinazzi as my second choice. He, as a general rule, seemed to have done better. He was placing better than Kimi in quite a few of the races, and that translates to fantasy points.
True.
So I'm going to take a gamble on him, and he's a little bit lower. So hopefully for my next pick, which is right now, I will get to. So Giovinazzi's AH. So let's see.
You got actually a decent amount of picks if you want Russell.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, disrespect. He was getting on me for Tsunoda. Now he's giving Russell.
No, see, but here's the... No,
he's giving Schumacher. He was claiming I was giving disrespect.
Here's the thing. Hold on. Is that we don't know anything about Tsunoda or Schumacher. They haven't proven one way or the other. So it's kind of disrespectful to just write them off. I've seen Williams. Okay, I've seen a Williams car. Okay, that's different. All right, because I know a Williams. Okay.
Okay, I will tell you guys, Williams did put out an official statement. They are planning to build their car around like 3 or 4 tracks. Instead of trying to be okay at all the tracks, they want to be really good at a few tracks so that they could potentially get some points, because that's probably where they're going to get ahead of Haas or even Alfa Romeo if they can score good on those tracks.
When we can figure out which tracks those are, then maybe I'll think about it. Once I know which tracks those are, and I'll be like, oh, okay, maybe Williams if I have no other option. Okay, so let's see here. Russell, Gasly, okay, Stroll, interesting. Norris, but I already said that about McLaren. Would Ocon do better than Alonso in Alpine? That is a good question.
Ocon got a second place podium at the end of last season.
I mean, but isn't Gasly generally? I don't know. Doesn't he drive pretty good for AlphaTauri? I think.
Gasly?
Yeah,
he was. He did pretty good last season. Some dare say he had the driver of the year.
Okay, well then I will pick for my third one. I'll do Gasly. I have no information on Tsunoda, and I'm not going to disrespect him by just assuming Gasly will do better. Well, but I'm gonna take a gamble.
So the reason why I picked Tsunoda is because he's in a AlphaTauri, and I do like Gasly. I used Gasly a lot last season.
Because you get them draft picks though. This is all strategy.
Well, so that's the thing. Is like if I picked Tsunoda, well, Vettel was at the bottom, so anybody could have picked up Vettel, right?
Right.
But I just figured that I wanted to get a person off the board. So like you said, Vettel gives me the most options for my third pick. So it made more sense to do that. I guess I could have done Gasly and then Vettel.
He's meta. He's doing the meta.
Doing the meta.
He's doing the meta in the preseason.
But look at this. Tsunoda versus Gasly. Actually, let's pull that up real quick. So
I mean, we know that
Tsunoda did a minute 29, and then Gasly did a minute 30.
Like you said, he was doing all the DRS stuff.
That's true.
Like, as soon as those look, I play the games. I know once the DRS gets taken off, and you can't just do it everywhere. It's different.
Right. So maybe he'll get outperformed, but we'll see. Okay, so then that means I'm left.
No.
Dad's turn with Alonso.
Why do you keep skipping him? Dang, man, he's just trying to
snake draft
to participate in our draft, and you just trying to cut him out, man.
So, Dad, ACs are calling. Looks like you've got Stroll, Norris, Ocon, Mazepin, Latifi, and Schumacher.
Oh, with Latifi.
Oh.
Latifi is a winner.
Latifi?
He will carry you to victory. Yes, do Latifi.
Well, as much as that sounds enticing, I really have an inkling for Norris. The McLarens. Let's see.
I was going to take Norris.
Pull it out this time.
But here's the problem. If he takes Norris, why would I take Stroll? That means I would double dip on the Aston Martin.
That is unfortunate that you get to pick last. I mean, that stuff kind of happens.
True. Okay, so you're going with Norris, Dad?
But look, you could get Sainz.
Norris.
Me? Ferrari with the Sainz? McLaren's going to do better than Ferrari, in my opinion. They got the Mercedes engine.
Okay. But the question is,
this is why we're scouting. We don't know.
No, but I got Ricardo. You think Norris will do better than Ricardo?
I think. I think.
Oh, yes, he does. Okay. Or do you think you're just going to get better fantasy points with Norris than Sainz?
Well, I think that Ricardo has a good history, but he's been a little tentative last year. That I think that Norris might be able to.
Yes, Norris had a lot of consistency. Ricardo had to hit his consistency, I think, midway through the season. It took him a while. Okay, so that means that you guys have picked your third, and then with Vettel, I get the last pick. Sainz, Raikkonen, Russell. So now I have to decide: do I want to go all in on Aston Martin?
Sure, you do.
Pick Mazepin.
Or, like you said, I could try a Ferrari and hope that they're better.
I mean, Sainz did get third.
Yeah, but he was in a McLaren.
You're scouting. You might as well.
Well, see, yeah, you're right. We're scouting. I might as well see how the Ferrari's doing.
You say you're scouting, but remember the implications. That 1 point could be all the difference between picking first and
I'll stick with my gut. I'll stick with my gut.
There are real world implications from this one pick.
I'm going to go all in on Aston Martin.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so as you can see here, we'll zoom out to 125. So as you can see, we've got our three drivers, and now it's time for us to...
I only didn't pick Sainz because that wasn't an option for me.
And then our playoffs. So, bro, you get to pick first, and you get to say who's going into slot 1.
All right, so we're moving over to the draft tab here. So you'll see on the very bottom, we have the pre and post. And in both the preseason and the postseason, you'll have 3 separate races, or 3 separate categories. and then each one of us will put one driver into each of those categories.
In each of those slots.
Yeah, into each
and
of those
then
slots.
Those slots, like slot 1 will go head to head. Whoever scores the most points will get a preseason or a championship point.
Okay, so like I did last time, in our mock draft before we actually started, recording, I went with Giovinazzi, and I'm going to do that again.
Okay, and Dad, who do you want to pair off in slot 1?
I think Norris will take him out. Well, no, not.
Oh, look at you! Not using.
Watch the race on Sunday. Norris, Giovinazzi collide. Boom, gone.
Wow.
DNF.
You throwing some shade on our drivers, huh?
Okay, so we got a McLaren.
Mad hating.
We've got an Alfa Romeo.
It's a figure of speech.
You don't see me. You don't see me saying I wish.
I'll put Stroll.
You don't see me saying I wish Rodgers would collide with his lineman.
Well,
for those of you who don't know, Aaron
it.
Rodgers is the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers, and I am a fan of the Green Bay Packers. Okay, so moving on. So Bro was in charge of slot 1. So Dad will now get slot 2. So Dad, you can pick first.
I'm going to put Leclerc in there.
Okay. And then I would go next because we're doing a rotation. We're not doing a snake for the slots. Okay, so versus Leclerc, I would put Vettel. Bro, who would you put?
And these are both good drivers. I'm going to go with Ricardo.
Okay, which then the last option then, my slot would be Tsunoda, followed by Gasly, and then followed by Alonso. So now what we're going to do is we're going to type in our Discord chat our
voices for the turbo.
Who we're going to turbo, which is secret, and then we will reveal it all at the same time. So the part of the strategy is who you draft with the chart. Then the next strategy is who you're going to pair off with. Now during regular season with Kings and Court Race, that'll have a different strategy, but for here it's just head to head. And then lastly, we get to turbo one of our 3 drivers, which means they'll get double points. Okay, so who are we going to pick?
We put that in where?
That'll be in F1 race.
Race?
Yep, so you'll put the name and then dash.
So for the viewers out there, just relax for a second. We're going to do a little something off screen, but we'll get back to that here in a sec.
3, 2, 1, lights out. Okay,
interesting.
So Tsunoda is getting turboed. Leclerc is getting turboed. And Gasly's getting turboed.
Oh, no.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy. So guess it comes down to the head-to-head between Gasly and Tsunoda, and they're both turboed. And then Leclerc will probably do pretty good. We're going to go into our last 2 segments of the podcast. Thank you for everyone who's been listening along and being a part of the journey. Pit strategy.
PitStrat.
Okay. Pit strategy. Take it over, Dad. This is your segment.
Okay. So what I like is understanding the strategy and seeing how it compares to different thought patterns. We're going to take our a team, and I'm going to analyze my strategy of that team. Like, let's say this coming week, it's going to be my team. And then we'll compare them. We'll pick someone randomly, and we'll discuss the strategy and if they did better or not as well with their strategy compared to the team I picked.
You will go into the comments, and using his same 3 drivers, you can rearrange which race you want to put them in and whatever.
Which slot?
Which slot of the 3. And then you will turbo one of the 3, and then you will compare your results with his results to see which one of you guys picked better. Hashtag PitStrat in the comments, and
don't just say hashtag PitStrat, here's my 3 and here's my turbo. You got to explain your strategy, right? We're picking at random, but we're going to base this off of your explanation of your strategy, because when we feature it next week, you might have been right, but then we don't know why you're right.
Yeah, we need to know your rationale.
So, okay, Dad, which team are you picking for the PitStrat for this week?
That would be my team.
Okay. So explain to us your strategy, and then we will offer in the comments below what their strategy is.
So once Giovinazzi was picked, I wanted to go with Norris because I thought that they were similar, but I thought Norris might have a slight edge. For my second race, Leclerc, I think with the tweaks, the Ferrari would do better this year, and he showed that he could be a good driver at some times last year, but I turboed him just in case.
Because, yeah, that's a good point. He may not be able to beat the McLaren or the Aston Martin, but with a turbo, he might be able to.
And so looking at the results, I was just fortunate that Ricardo or Vettel were not turboed.
True.
And then Alonso was the last pick, and so hopefully he'll do well.
But you're hoping to at least get two championship points or preseason points
out of three.
Right.
I mean,
so
obviously,
my brother
he's
and
wanting
I,
to go
bro
for
and I
three
are
for
going to
three.
be, Dominick and I are going to be fighting over 1 point. It looks like, and you might get away with 2. So
I'm fighting for 3, and I'm going to win anywhere between 0 and 3.
Very prophetic.
Very. I can see the future.
See the future.
I see the future.
See the future. Okay, so now we're going to go into our last segment, which is fan picks.
So fan picks is actually going to be based a lot more on the regular season. The PitStrat will also eventually be based off the regular season too, but for now, it's going to be based off the preseason. For the regular season, the 3 of us are going to come together and we're going to decide which 4 drivers we're going to pick. And then once the video is up, we will find the top liked comment, the top rated comment. And if you put hashtag FanPick and then your picks, and again, if you want to put your explanation, that would be great so that we could see your rationale as to who you picked. You get the option of anybody, all of your drivers, as long as you use the DRD system. We will then compare your picks to ours to see, did you win the King's race? Did you win the Quartz race? Like, how did you do compared to our picks? Put your comments, get the most liked, and we will talk about it on the podcast.
Who do we want as our first driver in our fan picks team?
Is Vettel good? Is Vettel somebody we want? Because since we get to pick anybody we want, Vettel might be a good choice because in our second driver...
Vettel should be the 3rd pick.
Or actually, I guess we could just put him wherever. As long as Vettel gets picked, we know that one of our drivers will have all the options, right?
Yeah, well, see, Vettel's, like I said, Vettel's at the bottom. So we actually want him to be 3rd pick. Or like you said, he could be any pick because anybody could pick him. Never mind.
Right. Okay, so who are you guys
let's
feeling?
look at who would be the hardest driver to pick up. Sonoda?
Anybody at the top.
Sainz,
but then again, if we're doing Vettel, there is no hardest driver to pick.
Well, no, that's only if we make Vettel the 3rd pick.
So I'm thinking that we should probably go with a person on each team that we think will win of the pair, and not have 2 on the same team. So,
Okay.
So which do we think is going to be the strongest team this year?
McLaren, I think.
Okay, so who would we want? Ricardo or
Norris?
Now, you guys were saying that Norris was consistent, right? So if you're worried about that, I might actually go with Norris.
Okay, so if we start off with Norris, we're just going to use Bro's thing right here. Sound good?
Yep. Sure. So what do we think is the second best?
Okay, so go up to AG, go down, and you'll see that we have anyone from Ricardo down.
Okay, so of the people available, I think Vettel is good. Aston Martin, I think, will be pretty good. I don't know how much Alpine is going to make strides, right? Bahrain last season, they had 2 races, right? And the Renault actually did pretty good on both of those races. So if we wanted to take an Alpine driver, the question is, would we think Ocon would do better or Alonso?
I'm thinking Alonso has more experience. But then again, Ocon, didn't he make a podium last year?
Yeah, he got 2nd place at the second Bahrain race. But a lot of that is because the two Mercedes made a big mistake. So let's say the two Mercedes had stayed in. He would have gone to 4th place.
Still pretty good.
Yeah.
So we want to go with Ocon? Give him a shot?
Sure.
Do we
And
have
he's lower. It would give us more options for, although we're going with Vettel for 3, aren't we?
Do we have an idea who they're structuring their race, the car around? Is it Ocon or Alonso?
I'm not sure. Like I said, if
well, we'll see. We'll see who drives better here.
We just know that Alonso usually drives the wheels off of any car that he gets a hold of. So if we think that he's just going to blow Ocon out of the water, he did have a bicycling accident a couple weeks before this preseason. So he has some metal plates or screws or something in his jaw, but it doesn't seem to affect him too much.
But let's just go with Ocon and see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see. Like, look, someone in the chat will probably be like, Alonso all the way, and then they'll beat us. Okay.
I mean, if that's what happens, then, you know.
That's what happens.
Maybe that's what will happen. Okay, so we said we're going with Vettel 3rd. Solid choice. Gives us all the options for the 4th. Okay, now how are you guys feeling about Leclerc?
I like him.
Well, actually, at Bahrain, he got taken out, which is the race that Perez won. If Leclerc hadn't gotten taken out, he would have probably been on the podium. So yeah, you don't want to discount Leclerc.
I mean, like, I'm feeling Ferrari, right?
Yeah, so but I think that the Honda engine is pretty good, and I wouldn't be surprised if the AlphaTauri would outperform the Ferrari.
Okay, so then
it's a toss-up for me between Gasly and Leclerc.
But I think Leclerc is a more aggressive driver.
Okay, explain that.
As long as he doesn't make a mistake, he'd score higher. So
that's true.
Gasly doesn't Leclerc usually get higher places than? But then again, we haven't seen how the AlphaTauri works.
Okay, we can go with Leclerc. Yeah, like I said, if Leclerc gets knocked out, though, that's the big thing. Gasly didn't really get into many accidents last season, and he didn't really have any car breakdowns. Leclerc, he had a few times that he got in an accident, but like you guys said...
Well, dear viewer, if you're worried that Leclerc is going to crash out, then maybe your choices will be different than ours.
Yeah.
We will see. We will see.
We will see. I guess the question is, do you think Vettel or Leclerc's going to do better?
Vettel has to prove himself to me. I know he's a former championship, and he didn't do as well as Leclerc did last year in the same car.
That's true.
So I'm not sold on.
Although I don't know if he was super motivated either. I think he might be more motivated now that this is actually like his team, I believe.
So, but I don't mind putting Vettel in the court race.
No.
Yeah, let's do Ocon and Vettel for the course race, and then we'll have Leclerc and Norris be the team's race.
Okay, great. And then how do we want to spend our 2 credits? Do you want a turbo in each race or a mega?
I say we should turbo for each, just so the question is Leclerc or Norris?
Norris is really consistent.
Probably Norris. Okay.
Yeah.
Turbo
especially if we're worried about Leclerc spinning out, because double of 0 is 0.
Okay, so who would we turbo? Ocon?
Yeah.
Put in the comments below, #FanPick.
So remember, you can pick any 4 drivers as long as you use the DRD system, and then you will put 2 in the Kings, and then 2 for the court race, and then you get to either spend 2 credits in a mega driver on 1 driver, or you can spend 1 turbo for 1 race and 1 turbo for the other race. So megas is triple points for 1 driver, or you can do 2 double drivers, 2 double point drivers on 1 of each. May the best strategy win.
And there we have it. Thank you for listening to our very first Pitwall podcast. Well, thank you to my handsome knights in racing armor. Thank you, Dominic. Thank you, Dad, David, and your host, Jeanmark. Until next time, we'll see you on the Pitwall.